Hola, hola! My name is Zulean Cruz Diaz, and welcome to Una Preguntita. As a Texas Rican, my life has been anything but traditional. I went from studying engineering to farming in Hawaii to building a career in nonprofits before diving into entrepreneurship. Every twist and turn taught me something new. But let's be real, life doesn't come with a manual. In Una Preguntita, we always begin con una pregunta, a question. So dime, have you ever felt like you're thriving in one area of your life while Googling how to be a functioning adult for the rest of it at 2 a.m.? Yeah, been there too. Every week, you and I are diving into the stuff nobody really teaches us. How to actually understand ourselves, build connections that matter, and handle those awkward conversations that keep us up at night. Whether you're figuring out workplace dynamics or trying to level up your emotional intelligence game, we're getting into it. I'm bringing you big questions, tools, and strategies for you to build the life and career you want. No filtered perfection, just honest conversations and practical ways to grow into your unapologetic self. Grab tu cafecito, get comfy, and let's figure this out together. Esto es Una Preguntita, where curiosity and understanding leads to action. Vamos! Amigui, ya tú sabes, we always get started con una preguntita. So, la preguntita, the question is, have you ever felt like you got promoted, pero nobody handed you the How to Be a Good Manager manual? I know, same. You're not alone. Y sabes que that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. Pero with a twist. And guess what? It has been exactly 2 years since Z Conecta, my business, has been in business. Thank you. Yes, I will take all of the applauses. And in order to mark this growth, I thought, let's showcase an interview I did 2 years ago on the We're for Good podcast. It's the perfect middle ground. You, amigui, get to learn about team trust, communication, conflict, y cómo no ser un micromanager, how to not be a micromanager, while I also honor the growth I've made. I didn't have the clarity at the time of knowing exactly what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a nonprofit consultant, and who really knows what that means? But as these 2 years have progressed, I've realized, no, Zulean, your focus right now is on teaching young, ambitious professionals communication and interpersonal skills. Back then, my storytelling, honestly, it needed work. And I'm very proud to say that my voice holds much more confidence now than what it once did. So while I might cringe a little listening back, I still stand by what I shared. Entonces, if you're leading a team, stepping into a new role, or just trying to figure out how to ask, where can I support you to your team? This is the episode for you, amigui.
So let's get started. Hey, Becky, what's happening?
Hey, John. I'm feeling little new leader Becky, 24 years old, is going to be seen today. And I can't wait to learn from our guest.
I wish we could pull our old selves up to the table, because I was looking for these kind of people to lock arms with and resources back in the day. And so excited to have this conversation. And we just have to first shout out our friend, Sabrina Walker Hernandez, who is one of the most incredible humans. She came on and has taught multiple times on our podcast about just really disruptive how to engage your board, how to show up as a human, how to do this in even small towns, how they can be just powerhouses for philanthropy. And so when Sabrina says you need to meet one of my dear friends who is also a powerhouse, come on to the front of the line. We would love to, spend time with them. And that is our guest today. This is Zulean Cruz Diaz. We are so delighted to have her. She is a consultant in building leaders and strategic planning, but she's here in our house today to talk about how do you set yourself up for success in a new management role. And, we have a huge heart for the young professional. We're talking about bringing our old selves up to the table because that was us. We have complete imposter syndrome of these roles that are sometimes feel too big for us for where we're at. But as we grow up, we realize, and we had everything we needed. We just needed the confidence. We just needed someone to kind of be in our corner to tell us that we've got it. And so Zulean is going to come in and she is going to kind of thread some of her personal experience. I love that she is a Texarican, which is a Texan by birth, but Puerto Rican by blood.
Oh, I love that.
I got a deep love for Puerto Rico after visiting for the first time recently, but she believes that to build a united community, you need to have a strategic, clear plan, or how she calls it is a guiding star. And I love that word picture. I can see Sabrina and some overlap in this too, of just this clear strategic plan. And in addition to that, to have a cohesive team. And so as a management coach and consultant, she aims to really build strong leaders for brilliant missions. And her mission is to form individuals from scratch with interpersonal relationship skills and management tools for strong working and trusted group dynamics. She is based in Texas, not too far from us right now. And it is an honor to have you on the podcast, my friend. Welcome to the We Are for Good podcast.
Thank you, John and Becky. I'm glad I could put your faces to your voices. I've been listening to you guys for a couple months now, and I love the way you guys put stories together and that you bring people that can help everybody in the nonprofit world. So thank you guys for the work you do.
Well, thank you. You're one of them that's helping us.
Absolutely. I'm glad we could put half of our face with our voice to
one half of the podcast graphic.
So, I mean, you know how we like to start these conversations. We just want to get to know you as a human and a person. Give us some context to your story growing up and what life looked like that led you to this work today.
Thank you for bringing up that I'm a Texarican. I feel so proud to say that I was born and raised in Texas, but I also am a Puerto Rican at heart. So I grew up in College Station half my life. I felt like I was living two worlds. So my second half of my life, I moved to the Valley, which is the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. It's on the very bottom tip. But after that, I had the privilege of being able to go to school out of state. I had the privilege of living in different places and traveling to different places. And so I was reflecting back on why have I kind of gone on to this stage in my life where I want to make sure that people want to be the best manager that they can be, that they want to lead a team as best as they can. And so I was remembering a couple of times, more than a couple of times, if I'm being honest, that I would come back from work. I was super deflated and I was not understanding why was I feeling so useless? Like, why was I incapable of sending emails? Why did my manager have to check every single thing I sent? Why was I not being trusted? Essentially, my confidence, my ego was in the dumps. And I didn't understand why I was being underutilized, why I wasn't being trusted, right? I thought I could conquer the world. And then I found myself that I was just wallowing in this negativity. And so these weeks and weeks of wallowing essentially turned into desperation of, I need to get out. I need to get out and I need to figure out how to feel better. And so I was so grateful. I ended up getting an introduction to my next job where my light started coming back, right? I was being seen for the work I was doing. My strengths were coming in. I was able to be trusted to go into the community and connect with the people that we were serving in that nonprofit. I felt responsible for community partner relationships, and people were excited of the connections I was making in our organization. And so I realized that people were starting to come to me for support. That was huge. And so a couple weeks into the new job, I went over to thank the person that had introduced me into the hiring manager. And I was kind of starting to pinpoint specific things that I realized were based on the manager and the culture and how much of a difference that made. I was just so overwhelmed with gratitude. I started crying in front of her. I was just so thankful. And so it was at that point that I realized just how crucial a manager and culture can be in an organization. We spend so much time in our jobs day in and day out, whether we like it or not sometimes, that it makes a really big difference on how you feel at work. You bring it back home or you bring it back internally, right? And so if you're not feeling great, if you're not feeling seen, if you're not feeling trusted, that takes another chip at you, right? And so I started having more and more responsibilities. I started having a team under me. And I realized that the way I showed up is the way my team is also showing up. If I come in frazzled, if I come in with some negative energy, my team is going to feel the negative energy. They're also going to exhibit those behaviors. If I come in excited, if I come in with so much energy, positive energy, wanting to connect, wanting to do my job, bringing in some fun into my job, the team is going to feel that way. And so I started thinking, okay, let's switch words. Let's start saying, we want to get to this goal. How do we do that? And they come up with their own ingenuity. They come up with their own creativity, right? And they take a spin on something I wouldn't have been able to do by myself. So all of these little things I started learning as I became a manager is things I started just collecting and collecting and collecting. And when I was doing reflective work, I realized that I don't want anybody to feel as awful, as low, which is such low confidence in their ability at work, that I want to make sure that I'm building leaders from scratch. I want them to know the power that they have when they walk into a room, right? That the power they have with their teams. And so that's why I'm doing the work I'm doing.
I feel so seen. Do you, John?
Yeah. And just like wrapped. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think we can all relate to this.
We can relate to it. I mean, even as you were talking, I know I referenced this at the beginning, but I was thrust into a big leadership role when I was 24. And I might as well have just gone to Barnes and Noble and bought Leadership for Dummies, because I literally had no clue what I was doing. And I could hear you kind of listing off some of those toxic leader traits, of micromanagement, but also like isolation and not asking questions. And I'm here to confess that I was one of those leaders that would just try to solve all my people's problems. And I love what you're saying about giving someone the agency to solve their own problems and being empowered in that way. And I just think this is a different conversation and level for, especially if you're a new manager, if you are young, maybe you're getting into management for the first time. And I want to talk to you about that. Like for people that are in new management roles and they're becoming the doer and the guider, I think a lot of people find themselves in this role and we want them to be set up for success. So maybe talk to us about some of the first things leaders should do, or maybe even just think about when they're stepping into a new role.
Well, I didn't come up with the analogy, but I heard it and I really felt seen when I heard it. And so let's take a step back. Let's kind of see, what does going from an employee to a manager kind of look like? And so if we use the analogy of you're in a factory setting, right? You were probably super good at this one job you were doing, or you were super proficient in this one area of the factory. And so when you go up to a manager role, that's you taking a step back and going up 5 steps and learning how to do the role you were doing before from a different angle. So when you realize that the job still needs to get done, right? You just have to do it in a different way. I think that helps reframe the way that you think of your new job. And so if we think about, a good manager knows the tasks that need to get done, but a great manager knows their team and utilizes the expertise of others in their team to outline the path. And so you utilize your team in order to say, so how do we get to this goal, right? Like, how do we get to X, Y, or Z if this is what we're reaching for? And they come up with this is what we need to do. Maybe we need to bring in this department. Maybe we need to ask for help over here. And so for them to outline their own paths gives them more ownership of the work. And you don't have to be the one giving them all the to-dos to do over and over and over again. So knowing what it feels like that you still need to get the job done, but knowing your team and knowing how to utilize their skills in order to outline the path is something I think really helped me understand and kind of reframe my new job, because it is a new job, and remind myself that when I take those 5 steps up to this new position, I'm looking at the bigger picture. My job is not to go down the 5 steps, do the job like I used to, and then go back up the 5 steps. You might need to learn how to communicate, right? You might need to know how to ask so-and-so to do this part and so-and-so to do that part and figure out how everybody collaborates together to make that goal or to achieve the task or the mission or whatever it is, but it's learning the new position that you're in.
Where were you 20 years ago, Zulean? I could have used all of this. It would have saved me so much stress and feeling like Atlas. That's a great framework.
I love that metaphor and explanation of it, because I think there's so much power. We talk a lot about just like servant leadership and just the idea of showing up without ego and really showing up with an open hand is so important. And I think that example is a really great way of that, because it's really easy to like want to just have people do things the way you did them. But just because that's the way you did them did not make them the right way or probably even the best way to do it. And so you're missing out on the opportunity of humans with ingenuity and innovation and different perspective pouring in to do things better than maybe they could have been done. So if you hold clear to that North Star, then you can do that. So how do you really grow in those roles as the doer and the guide? If I'm hearing kind of the two different sides of it, it's like the doer and the guider, how do you suggest people grow into those two different roles?
I think it always goes back to reflection. I was listening to a previous podcast that you guys had, and the topic of reflection kind of just kept coming up and coming up. And I was like, oh my gosh, when I was prepping for this podcast, I was like, I need to remember to say reflection. And it was just so interesting how it came up just the other day as I had already been planning for it. And so it always goes back to reflection. Reflection is part of the job as a manager. It is very easy to get super swept up in all the to-dos that you need to do, all of the tasks, all the fires that you need to put out. But reflection is part of the job, right? Like when you're up those 5 steps, you're looking at the work in a different angle. And looking at the work in a different angle means you're reflecting. You're being able to see the bigger picture. So if you want key points, what you can start doing is during your reflection time. So maybe you should set out 10 minutes on Monday or 15 minutes on Monday and a little bit on Friday too. And think about, okay, let's take a breath, take a big breath in and then take it out. How am I feeling? How am I showing up for my team? How is it going for them, right? Where are we? Maybe somebody's using a different strategy to get the job done. How am I feeling about that? And why am I feeling about it that way? So I think it just really starts with reflection so that you can know where to refocus your energy and your focus, and know what's really important so that you don't just feel flustered and need to do all these to-dos and lose track of the end goal.
I think you've talked about like the progression, and I think this is a true reality. Like when you add leadership responsibility, especially when you've been doing kind of one cog of the work and now you kind of have expanded responsibility, it's hard to figure out how do you balance completing the roles that you were used to doing and then adding on management, whether it's checking in with the team or kind of coaching and trying to step into some of those new roles. How do you balance that?
I think it goes back to knowing your team, right? You need to know who you have on your team and what their strengths are in order to be able to figure out if you need support in this other area, let's go ask them. If you need support over here, we know Johnny does really good over here, right? So a strategy I like to use is sometimes we have too much in our brain. We have way too much. I have an ADHD brain. And so I will start one thing and then I'll jump over here and then I'll jump over there. And I get really overwhelmed pretty quickly because I don't finish one thing and then I jump to the next. And so what has helped me in the past is I wrote down all of the buckets. I said, I'm in charge of X, Y, Z, and you list all of the buckets, kind of all of those projects or all of those leads. And then under every single one of those buckets, you write down all of the things you do, right? Let's pretend you are in charge of your communications department and you have a campaign going out. On that campaign, right, you'll write down answer social media posts, follow up with so-and-so, all of the minuscule things, or check up on so-and-so and how this is going. Do we have data points? Have we put out a survey? All of those minuscule things, so that later you can compare, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. Where is my time being spent? And then be able to pinpoint, oh, maybe I don't have to reply to every single Facebook comment. Maybe so-and-so can help me with this, right? You're actually able to pinpoint where you can get support rather than being like, I don't know where to identify why I'm overwhelmed. I just am. And then that's kind of the beginning of identifying where you can get support so that you can be able to manage as well as do your job.
The reason I love this so much, Zulean, is just because you're showing that leadership is not just the hard skills, and you cannot go through this work with a roadmap that somebody's creative. This is how to be a leader, because if you're not checking inside and you're not getting some sort of a litmus test on how am I doing? How am I feeling? I think that there is really something, because we talk about asset mapping all the time. Like, how do you map all of your assets? And this is really about like mapping what's going on inside you. And if you can really parcel that out, I really do feel like you could find incredible bottlenecks and opportunities that exist there. And what a beautiful way to bring people in to like co-build solutions for that. I mean, that again inspires a lot more trust. And you mentioned communications, and I just think this is the pinnacle really of being a leader is how do you communicate? Where do you communicate? How often do you communicate? What words are you using? Because the reason I have the heart for leaders is because they're really doing two jobs. You have your day-to-day job, and then you're managing all of these people and all of their tasks. And it's a lot. And so all of you leaders out there, I see you and I appreciate how much you're pouring in. So talk to us a little bit about what you've seen in terms of the really important communication skills that are needed when stepping into a new management role.
You're like reading my mind, Becky.
We're the same. Our brains are fusing.
I was like thinking back, what have I already said? Okay, what do I really want to make sure people remember? And it's to listen. I think we step into managerial roles and we think, oh, we need to talk. We always need to do this. We need to do that. And it's more of like getting things or messages out rather than remembering that we need to take in messages as well. And so I have a tool or a template I usually use. And so in case anybody wants it, just make sure to connect with me later. But I have this template where again, ADHD brain, I have a lot going on. So I need a place where I just dump all of my ideas. I call it a brain dump. And so I'll write down, let's pretend there's a check-in I have with my team member, and there's some actionable items I want to make sure that are done. But I don't want to come in saying, we need this, this, and this, because that means I probably wasn't listening to them. That means I'm probably telling them how to do it rather than them coming up with figuring out how to do it. And it's probably more work, and they might have already been doing it in a different way. So I dump all of my ideas, or I dump everything I want to make sure that's communicated. But when I come to the meeting, since they're already taken out of my brain and they're written down, I can listen. And you can ask questions like, how are you, right? We talked a little bit about making sure you have that connection with your team. How is life? How are you really? I think Jenna Kutcher says it all the time. How are you really? It's her new book.
Exactly.
What is on your brain right now? What are you working on? And you listen rather than tell them how to do things, what to do, where to refocus. So that's one section, right? You listen. And the next section is like, what is coming up for you? And then what is coming up for me? How can we support each other? And there's a couple of guiding questions on that template that really helped me in my team meetings to make sure I was listening first before I was speaking. And that is a really big tool to utilize first.
Such a great tool. And I mean, I feel like as a new manager, you need these kind of like things. You need these frameworks that you can go back to. And one of the biggest ones that I always need is conflict management. Let's be clear.
I'm so glad you're asking this question.
It's not my favorite thing to handle. I'm a peacemaker. So I like the peace. And so kind of sometimes leaning into harder conversation is harder. What do you advise, people that you work with of like, how do you know when it's time to bring in someone to talk about the conflict? And when is it just something it's not that big of a deal to keep moving?
Yeah, I think to answer the last part before we kind of dive into the meat of it is you need to remember and think of, do I need to take a pause and listen and figure out what's going on? Or is it something quick that I can just get out of the way? Usually at least for me, I don't know about you guys, but whenever there's something kind of big or a little thing and I just don't say it and it grows inside and it gets bigger and bigger.
I hate it.
And it's so overwhelming. And so if there's something small, right? Like they're tardy, just bring it up right away, right? If they misspelled something on a flyer or anything kind of small that's just quick, just say it right then and there, because you don't want that to keep bottling up. If somebody's always late and really is a value to you, you need to make sure you say it right away, because then it just becomes something much bigger in the end. Now, when it is something bigger, right? There was a time when they were taking out their overwhelmingness in the job in a way that was not productive for the team. And it was the negativity was kind of spreading into other teams, other departments in the organization. And so we had to figure out, okay, why is this individual acting this way, right? Like we didn't know that they were overwhelmed. We didn't quite know why they were kind of acting this way. And I went one-on-one and we talked a little bit about what is going on. Like, what do you have on your list? If this is you being overwhelmed, let's write it all out, right? Let's use that same template. Let's take our ego behind us. Let's just talk clearly. Write down everything that you do, and then we can go from there and figure out, maybe you don't need to do this. Maybe don't do this. Kind of let's redirect your focus so that you do this instead, because this is where the team needs you, right? Remembering that we're a team. We're not just individual employees in an organization. We all have to work together in order to make the mission go forward. We can't just work independently. And so that was one way of doing it, just trying to listen. And then being able to figure out, okay, is it that they're overwhelmed? Is it that they're mad about this? Is it that there's a conflict with another team member? And then how do we go about that? So it starts with listening. And then from there, if things are not getting better, that is when you've already written it down, right? You've come up with a game plan. You both sat down, you wrote it out, you talked about it verbally, you sent it in an email of what the game plan is. If that doesn't work out and things still kind of progress to the next stage, then that's when you probably want to bring in either your manager or somebody above you to come up with a different game plan of like, how do we move forward? Because we all want to move forward. We all want to feel better. I think we need to remember that. We all want to feel better. How do we get there? And so that's where you bring in the next person.
There is something very powerful about just letting someone come in and share what's going on. I don't want anyone to just gloss over the listening piece and the power of it. And we know the power of listening, maybe better than anybody, because of the way that we listen to donors talk about things that really move their hearts. But when we listen to each other, there's something very sacred that happens. If your boss, someone with more power, brings you in and says, I'm worried about you. I want to know what's going on, and I'm here to listen and I'm here to help. I want to give you the space and the time to just talk to me about what's going on and let me know how I can help you. I just think words matter. Tone matters. I don't know that I'm great at conflict management. I've had a lot of people in my career tell me that I'm very confrontational. And it's true, because I hate conflict so very much that I attack it right away, because I'm an Enneagram 2 and I'm trying to get back to harmony as fast and as quickly as I can. And I do think that things fester, and man, do we know about office drama in the nonprofit sector. I bet if I talk to me about the office drama in your nonprofit, I could get a whole blog post from people about all the crazy things that happen in the office. But I do think that there is power in just being a human being and asking someone if you can partner with them to make things better. So thank you for that great example.
I want to thank Becky, John, and Julie for allowing me to not only share this recording on the Una Preguntita podcast, but for being part of my growth. If you are in the nonprofit world, I'm talking to you, amigui. I highly encourage you to listen to the We Are for Good podcast. If you're interested, I'm going to go ahead and leave their link in the podcast show notes below. That's the show, amigui. Si te gustó, if you liked it, or if you thought of somebody right as you were listening to this, I encourage you to be generous. Share the podcast with somebody. And if nobody came to mind, then tell me what you thought. ¿Qué aprendiste? What did you take away from today? Como siempre, I'm your amiga Zulean, and I'm sending you off today con un huge abrazo, amigui. Nos vemos en la próxima.